Okay, everyone. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. We need to be happy. That's the main thing. But in today's lesson of Tanya that we're going to do, we're going to first lean back on what we discussed yesterday. What did we discuss yesterday? We discussed yesterday that we need to have fear. What does healthy fear look like? We can't just live a life of only love. That's only one wing. We need two wings to fly. One wing that Hashem gave us is to fear Hashem. It's an actual mitzvah. So what did Hashem intend for us to experience with fear? Because a lot of us have trauma with fear. Being taught to be just serve Hashem because we're scared of getting hit. Which Parkei Avos clearly teaches us not to do that. So what does it mean to be fearful? Fearful means, the way we learned it yesterday's Tanya, and I don't want to focus on it because I want to focus on today's, is we discussed that there is a fear where there's a fear where I am cognitive and aware of who I am standing in front of. And in reality, a reality check is that who we're serving is the King of all kings, the creator of all worlds, and all these worlds are just one thought that lasted so far 6,000 and something years. And there's billions of different types of creations in this physical realm of existence itself, and each one is, depending which element it's a part of, it depends on how much consciousness it's able to express and experience us through speech and thought, which we can connect to divine intellect. And all these creations are all from just the physical realm of existence. And when you think about that, we're dealing with a life force and an infinite light that can do what it wants and direct you how it wants, and that every little thing that's going on in your life is directed by this life force, you're left with not just love. There's a feeling of awe, of embarrassment of just of doing things which are not in the will of this life force of creation, this infinite light, disconnecting ourselves. It's almost just like you're standing in front of a king. So today we're going to focus on what about those that are, let's call it lower or simpler, right? Let's use the language simpler than those that have the capacity to think on the intangible in such a manner. What do? We also need us lower souls, we need also to be able to have fear of God. We need our tefillas and our Torah to go up to Shemayim. We discussed we need the wings. So that's what today's Tanya is going to be concerned about. So let this learning give us the merit to experience a little bit of this fear, which we need to experience. Okay. He says, even someone who doesn't feel at all any of this embarrassment or fear, because his limited grade of his soul, that he's not able to concept higher than the lower spheres of this physical realm. The fact that we want to, it's almost like in the 12-step program, they have if you're not, you have to at least be willing to want, right? It's are you willing to want to be sober? Are you, in this, in the Torah that we're learning right now from the Alter Rebbe, he's kind of telling us the fact that you want to serve Hashem itself is enough to actually do the service and for it to go. That itself, to want to serve, we discussed that we need to be servants, not just a son. The fact that you want to serve a greater being that's higher than you, that you have absolutely no concept of, you're not at all downloading any of what you discussed of what's going on around you. The fact that you at least just want to be a part of this greater being and serve the greater being is enough for the Fearing God is its own mitzvah. Serving Hashem, doing all the services of Hashem are each their own mitzvah. So you're doing it and you have enough to do it with that wanting itself. Then he says more than that. I don't fully understand that point itself. I'm not going to get into that. We understand that enough to give this year. Also, that itself that you want to serve is coming from a low level of fear itself. It is fear. Why? He says, what's it coming from? We're just wanting to serve Hashem. It's not just from love. Wanting to serve, we discuss. It's not just you want to do the acts of your lover, of your beloved. You want to serve. We discuss service means that you're like a yoke, like an ox, the yoke that's placed on an ox for it to be of service to this world. There's a yoke placed on us that we are serving Hashem because this and this not different, regardless of how we feel. And that comes from an awakened state of who it is that we're standing before. And that's standing before us, better said. He says like this, the fact that you're abstaining from doing something that's not good and doing good, but you're abstaining from doing the not good, is coming from a lower level of fear, at least like a fear of doing something in front of a friend. Let's say another human being. When you have a fear because you're standing in front of a friend and you don't want to do certain things in front of him that you would do in private, that itself, when you have that state of like, I want to serve Hashem, I know that there's a being greater than me, I know that I'm a part of something incredibly great, and I want to serve this being that's creating me and all of the worlds. If I have that, at least that level, that this being of an awakeness to the presence of this being, even though I don't concept any, we're talking about a low level of a soul that doesn't concept anything of that we discussed. The fact that I want to serve Hashem and I'm awakened to this, that Hashem is in front of me just like a friend is in front of me, it's pretty much we're asking you to serve Hashem like you're serving a human being. That, at least that level of fear of another human being. And Rabbi Yochanan said that that's enough. He in fact blessed people, may God's will that the fear of heaven be upon you like the fear of a human being. That is enough to fear. In fact, it's told over and explained in Torah that when we sin, it's because we lost at least that level of fear of even being in the presence of a human being. Meaning to say, we don't think that there's any, for a second we lose track that there's a being that's seeing us like a human being, and that's where sin happens. So abstaining from fear from sin, which is fear of the lowest level of fear that everyone, all of us can have, is to be awakened to this, that there's a being in front of us, just like a human being. Now he says like this: this fear that everyone can have is called the lower fear. In Kabbalah, it's termed as yira tata. Tata means the lower level of fear. It's a fear of punishment. What does that mean, yira zachet? What's coming to me right now is a new understanding. Yira zachet doesn't mean fear of being punished. It's yira of sinning. I'm scared to sin. That's something that came to me just now. Shekaidemes l'chachmas is only a lower level of fear, a fear of transgressing, rather than a fear of Hashem Himself. I didn't understand this when I first was preparing this year. Now I do. You learn more from your students or from the video camera than you do from your own learning. This lower level of fear is the fear of transgressing. Higher level of fear. With the higher level of fear, it's already years baishes. It's an embarrassment. When I know what's going on and I decide to do like something against it, I wouldn't because I'm embarrassed. When you recognize a little bit, Hashem gives you a little bit of concept of his being. The lowest, even the lowest of his being. The fact that he created you, that's the lowest of his being. When you have a little bit of a sense of this, and you become like embarrassed to not be a part and to disconnect from the will of this constant creating life force of yours. And the fact that more and more you learn about the concepts in Chassidus explaining about this intangible life force called Hashem, you become more and more embarrassed to do anything but the will of Hashem. But we're discussing the lower level of fear, is that of a fear of transgressing, which that comes from just being awake to the fact that there is a being. Just like there's a friend standing in front of you, I'm not going to do certain things. Is it from embarrassment? No. It's more of just like, maybe it's a lower level of embarrassment. I don't know what to call it, because the author calls the higher level embarrassment. He calls the lower just fear of transgressing. But standing in front of another friend, what would I feel if why am I not doing things that I would do? A shame, and then out of respect. Disrespect. I don't want to disrespect. Okay, so there are two fears, Isir and Isir Chulu. Without fear at all, the service doesn't go to on high. It does not go up. You need two wings. Love and fear are two different wings. Now he says something important as well. Now, we can't go to the deep end with fear. We need to be in the balance of two energies, love and fear. It says actually that one can experience two emotions at once, conflicting emotions. You can't have two thoughts, but you can have two emotions, which is why, interesting, not mentioned in today's Tanya, but I'm going to mention this, that if someone hears news that his father passed away, and then at that moment he hears news that he just got a crazy inheritance from his father, he's supposed to bless Hashem in that moment for the inheritance. Now I ask you a question. The guy just, his father passed away. Why is that Torah asking him to make a bracha on inheritance? And the answer given in the Gemara is because one can withhold two conflicting emotions at once. There are two truths. The man just became a rich man, and the man just lost his father. And they both need to be respected. Same thing here. We're an Eved. And in the life of an Eved without a Ben, it's strictly serving out of complete embarrassment, or at least a fear of disrespecting being in front of him. And then there is the fact that this being has unconditional love to you, loves you, wants the best for you, and that triggers the part of our soul that's a son. Wow. We also need to be a son of Hashem, motivated by love. In order to awaken at least the natural love for Hashem that is hidden in one's heart, so that he should at least become conscious of it in his mind. Let's This should be the intent when involving ourselves in Torah and mitzvahs, is to cleave. Now this is really important what he's mentioning here. If I understand this correctly, the Alter Rebbe is saying a preface to Avodah is Yira. Everyone, please, whoever's listening to this class, please listen to the ending of this. The Alter Rebbe seems to be saying that the garment to which we wear in the actual service is complete love. The preface, fear. We need to recognize who we're standing in front of. But it says here that when he mentions that we can't get lost in fear and we need to have love, he says like this, V'zois Tia kavanase be'esek hatera mitzvah. This should be his intent when occupying himself in the actual service of Torah and mitzvah. That his divine soul, and as well as his vivifying soul, together with this garment, shall cleave to Hashem, as he explained to us. When we do the mitzvah, it's to cleave to Hashem. L'chaim.